Thank you, Ivan, for this nice introduction. Good afternoon, dear participants, and thanks to ETH team and Times Group for hosting us today on this topic of extreme relevance in current times. Digitalization, as we speak, no, and the topic is about key to unlock tangible business outcomes. So let's start with the session proceedings, and I would request all participants for their undivided attention for the next 30-35 minutes or so, for them to get a crisp, incisive view on levers of digitalization from the actual practitioners. So this is a view from practitioner standpoint. This is not a Google Gyan or a 30,000 feet information. We would talk about the real work done on the ground. So stay tuned and glued. So, okay, before I start with the Q&A round with the esteemed panelists, let me just give a quick context about the topic. So if you see, in today's world, the question in CXO's mind across enterprises and government bodies is not whether digitalization makes sense or not, whether it makes sense to their setups today, but it's about how quickly can we kickstart on this journey and which areas do we focus our energies on to reap in quick benefits. That's the key focus. And the COVID pandemic, the current pandemic as we are facing, has actually accelerated the need for digitalization. The focus is to digitize information. The focus is on digitalizing processes. And I can tell you, as per studies which I have gone through by leading research organizations, businesses which have been slow in digitalization are actually struggling to remain competitive as we speak. Though it's important to manage day-to-day efforts, but it's equally important, but I would say rather more important, to shape the entity's future through timely interventions. And I would say time is running out for those who have not started their journey, and the leadership in these entities need to act before it's too late. So let me start with the questions now. So we have on the panel from CLP, we have Abhay Kotarji. So Abhayji, I just wanted to know on this topic that what have you done till so far on digitalization, or specifically if I talk about Industry 4.0 area in your domain, and what kind of intangible or intangible business outcomes you have achieved? You can give maybe one or two examples on this. Over to you, Abhayji.
Thanks, Atul. For the brief, I think I very much agree with you what you briefed. So as far as our organization is concerned, we have done a number of initiatives. I'll share the two major ones. So the first one is on digitalization, where we have done a complete big data analytics platform. So we have got renewables business. So we've got 17 renewable assets, wind and solar, which are scattered all over the country, starting from Kanyakumari right up to the Pakistan border in Rajasthan. So to fetch all that data and to bring it to meaningful utility, we had to go for this. And so we set up this analytics platform. All the data from all these 17 assets flows into our cloud. And then we have got algorithms-based programs there and the AI ML functionalities, which throws out the analytics for us. So how we utilize it is, one is that we get an online on-the-fly analysis of how the plant and equipment is performing. So if the plant is underperforming, we can take immediate actions. So previously it used to be like a post-mortem of the issues and then later on come back. So by that time we have lost a lot of generation, but now it is on the fly. So that is one advantage. The second way we are using it is automating our reports and the MIS, which was taking like a huge amount of manual work to compile all these reports from all over the country. So these two, but the bigger thing we find is the empowerment which we have been able to give to the team through this initiative. So what we have done is also made mobile apps on which all this platform is available to them. So if the machine is underperforming, they can check on the run. So my plants are actually scattered over like 500, 600 or 1000 square kilometers of areas. And the people are always moving in the vehicles. So on the go, they can know which machine is under performance, which equipment is giving a problem. So from there itself, they can guide the technician or other people and do the interventions.
Perfect. Yeah.
So huge sense of empowerment because in their palm, all the 17 assets are there. So at fingertips, the data is available and they can act also very fast. So this is
No, I
reducing
think
our downtime and improving our performance.
perfect. I think it's a great blend of using these IoT devices and interconnected systems for these remote locations wherein you have the solar farms and the wind energy farms,
Yeah,
and then collating with all that information and relaying it to the right team for decision support, and
yeah,
then also enabling mobility over it. I think that's a great use case which you have shared. And it's
yeah.
not just about using these use cases in a solar or a wind setup. It's easily replicable in a plant or a process setup as well. Easily.
Yes, it is replicable for any kind of manufacturing. And the
Correct. Correct.
second one which we are doing is an RPA, which we are implementing a bot for removing the manual process which is involved in getting the physical invoices,
Yeah.
converting them into digital form, and then putting the service entries and finally taking it right up to the payment stage. So this was all involving like a lot of manual trajectory and also involving a lot of errors because numbers of the invoice, the values, the tax, and all that. Many times there used to be data entry errors. So these all is being avoided. And finally, the inputs go into our ERP package, and from there, the ERP can process it further.
Wow.
So
I
that is
think
another
that's
project which is we have done.
great.
So
I
this
think
is
that's
applicable
a
everywhere.
usage of RPA in automating these financial account payables, if I may call it.
Yeah,
Account payables, if I may call it. It's a great use case, and this also is quite replicable across enterprises. Yeah, I think great insights to begin with. I thank you, Abhijit, for sharing it.
thanks.
And I would now just move on to Pratapji, and Pratapji represents Engineero, which to me, I was always considering Engineero to be a process engineering consultant giant. But as I now learned from Pratapji that no, they've been doing remote monitoring for more than 5, 7 years now, or even more. So I'll be, maybe Pratapji, if you can share your insights on what you have done on digitalization till so far, and what kind of business outcomes you've achieved out of that. Maybe you can give a couple of examples, please. Over to you.
Sure, Atul. Yes, I mean, basically, Engineero works. If you look at the domain, it's process manufacturing. So we work with a lot of petrochemical manufacturers, refiners, chemical manufacturers, and so on. Now, if you look at digitalization, there are several components to it. You have the sensors, and you talk of Internet of Things. I call it Internet of People because you're connecting the things, the sensors, and several things to the people and people to people. So that's one part of it. Then there's the data platforms, data bases, the data lakes, so on. How you handle the data. Then a very important piece is the advanced analytics. That has to be interconnected, and that is where you use. There's a lot of knowledge that is already built in this space in chemical engineering, and then there's AI and ML. So that enables a lot faster analysis of particularly of real-time events and so on. And then you have collaboration software and business intelligence, which is where. Like you were saying, where we got into this whole area, we do this end to end now, and we've deployed this at few of our customers in this space. Because we started, like you said, back 20 years back, we were doing this as a remote monitoring and taking the data, doing the remote analytics, providing it back. So we almost essentially had to do all these pieces, even though it had to be done from our technology center. About 6, 7 years back, a lot of our clients, I mean, we serve a lot of clients here in the US, in Europe, Middle East. They started coming to us and saying, now we're getting on with this digitalization initiative. Be part of us because we know what you do. We want you to deploy this for us, on site. And this is how we started getting involved in this area. And in the last 7 years, we've done several of these. Let me take a couple of examples. One is of a large midstream player in the US. And They have 40 facilities. These are production gas processing facilities, and they're all, all over the US. It's spread out in highly remote places and so on. Incidentally, now they started early, and they're one of the lighthouse companies, which is a tremendous recognition for them, because they're known to be leaders now in this digitalization implementations. So today, and what we did for them is really connect all this up, do the analytics, and they get that information in a central location, as well as the same information is seen as in each plant by the operators. So they see what has happened. They see it's predictive, and it kind of gives them early warnings, and also gives them some prescription as to what what could be done better.
Yeah.
So ultimate objective is better efficiency, better reliability, better capacity utilization, and of course compliance and safety. Equally important, right?
Yeah.
So these are all things that come out of it. Documented, what they've got out of it, is about 22% improvement in profitability.
Ooh, wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. So that they published it and so on. So that is one very classic example. One of the early adopters, early starters in this area. We've done similar things in ethylene facilities, where we're just looking at the facility, and there we're doing a lot of things like reliability, early warnings, equipment, automatic equipment tracking and monitoring, and also dynamic benchmarking, showing if they're doing something somewhere, automatically tells them, listen, for these kind of conditions and these kind of situations, you've done a lot better before. And why have you done better? Is it because something has changed in the plant, or is it because some setting has changed? So that is, automatically given to them, and that has been very, very useful. So these are the,
interesting, I would say, yeah.
So I can keep talking about this.
No, I know, I get it. In fact, it's almost like you're talking about this process plant. Likewise, in a batch plant, this could be similar to a golden batch, wherein where you've done something which is extremely top of the game, and you kind of try to replicate it as often, so that you try to meet that benchmark more often.
Absolutely. And in continuous processes, someone has to go and search for it. It could take weeks, days to do this thing. And this automatically, immediately is thrown up, and they say, oh, okay. So that's a very useful.
Yeah. Perfect. I think that's so good. I think I'm just eager to hear Satish, but before I jump over to Satish, I would like to hear from Mayur, Dr. Mayur, actually. And the point, which I was curious to know was that conventional wisdom generally would say that it's just the private players who are focused on this transformation journey, and the government setups are yet to catch up. But I was just reading an article sometime back wherein there is this pilot project by Indian Railways of all, and they are ushering into Industry 4.0 initiatives in one of their coach factories in Raebareli. So I would be keen to learn from Dr. Mayur on the smart, or how do you use these smart technologies like AI or IoT in the e-governance initiatives, so to say.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Atul. Well, I must say that it is very easy to blame the government and the God. So if anything goes wrong, you can always blame either God or the government. So that's fine. However, I'm very happy that now, people know that yes, government is also actively participating in the AI-based technologies, as you have heard about the railways initiative. However, there are many such initiatives taken by the government. Even one of the examples that I would like to quote here is the Supreme Court of India. The Honorable Supreme Court of India uses the AI-based technology to translate all the judicial documents into the 9 different regional languages. As we know, we have a diverse languages and translation is a very big challenge for us. So yes, Supreme Court of India is using this AI-based technology for the translation of judicial documents to the regional languages. This is just one example. However, we all know that in the last 5 years, government has done extremely well for implementing the digitalization. We all know about our flagship program named Digital India, and that we call it as a jam trinity. That is a Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and mobile usage, which has helped millions of people to get the benefits directly to the government. So now we have achieved such digitization milestones. However, we are now standing at the shore of an ocean, and we have just started a journey to cross that ocean of AI-based technologies. So yes, there are many initiatives. There are many examples that government has set up a national AI program. Then government has set up a responsible AI for youth program. So yes, government is actively participating in this role. However, government has a multiple dimensions over here. Maybe government can work as an enabler, government can work as a customer for these services, and government can also be a collaborator for these services. Yeah. So yes, there are various dimensions where government can participate, and ultimate goal is to give the public service and to empower the citizens. So that will be possible with such technologies.
Great. I think that's a great insight, I must say. And you brought up this point around this education, around reskilling on the responsible AI. That's very important, because ultimately for usage of these technologies, you need to have skilled people to be able to absorb these technologies and then disseminate in the larger fray, so that the adoption becomes more widespread and seamless, so to say. And I think that's very important as we speak. I think I'll come back to you, and there are some more interesting questions for you, Dr.
Yes, sure.
And but then I'm just keen to hear from Satish, who represents iTelligence, a known company, a well-known company, a partner of choice, I must say, for implementing these digitalization solutions. Of maybe you can share a couple of these success stories, Satish, with some enterprises on what kind of problems have you helped them solve, and how have they evolved in this journey? Over to you, Satish.
So thank you, Atul. Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, Atul, just to give, and I think a lot of good comments and insights come from the panel. So just to add to some more insights on this entire digitalization. So we as an organization deal very specifically in ERP. So that means we manage the core systems, the core operations. And we are seeing that multiple customers, in fact, every customer has a very unique challenge. The challenge what they face is there are a lot of operating data, right? The data comes from machines, the data comes from people, the data comes from the data within the process. But then the experience data is what doesn't come there. That's experience data resides in customers, resides in vendors, resides in people. And that's where we felt that the right need to connect these two data is what is one of the critical aspects of digitalization. So what we call as intelligent technologies. So that's where the concept of introducing the experience data to the systems, and so systems can take the data and give the right value to the customers. So there were many use cases when we look at industries. Typically, when we look at core manufacturing, or when you look at any industries very specifically, multiple use cases have evolved, and we have been involved in multiple such use cases. One of this very interesting concept which we have done very remotely for a customer is that we have given the concept of AR, the augmented reality, using AR glass or Google Glass. So typically what happens is when you look at a warehouse in a particular unit, which is an enormous warehouse where there are a lot of materials tagged in bins. And the concept is that it's very difficult to identify a material if it's damaged or it's defective. It's just seeing the condition. You have to see the batch. You have to see or read that particular data using a QR code. So the AR glass concept is that once a person walks into the particular warehouse, he's able to really detect a material which is expired by just scanning. The glass scans as he walks through, and he's able to get the intimation and immediately communicate back to his superiors or the person that there's something defect in this particular stack. Let's go and let's replace it, or let's send it back to the source. So these are some of the key aspects when you look at manufacturing. And then we have a very unique concept where most of the companies in manufacturing have a lot of utilities. So utilities stoppage is something which impacts the manufacturing, it impacts the production, and that's where a lot of revenue gets lost. So having a very good monitoring process where every utility which is being run, be it a compressor, be it a heater, a boiler, having a predictive process is something which really adds a lot of value. So these are some of the key aspects, and these are multiple success stories where every customer gets a value add, gets the visualization of what's happening, and able to take corrective decisions. So that's where we have been actively involved, and this has been the trend. Just to add, like everyone has clearly mentioned that every organization would like to do this, and that's where we all are aligned as a partner and as a company to set these particular priorities to customers.
Great. I think great insight, Satish. And I also want to highlight that though we talk about these great things or these newest technologies, but having a strong core or a strong transactional system is fundamental to build a layer above. Otherwise, if the core itself is shaken or is broken, so to say, everything else is not sustainable. Nothing is sustainable. I think a great point you've brought. I think in the interest of time, I would now request each participant to share just one learning based on their implementation of these newest technologies, which they would like to share with the participants. And I would request Abhayji to start with you. Just maybe you can share a learning. Maybe we each one of us can take a minute to just give a brief about those learnings. Yeah, please.
Right. So thanks, Atul. So actually there is a massive power of digitalization which is to be tapped, and digitalization has become an imperative. So the leadership knows it, but the team may not. So I think the number one challenge that is that we have to be able to communicate to the team in a very good way, also address their fears and concerns, if any, around that, and get a perfect kind of understanding from them, and drive the digitalization as a bottom-up initiative rather than a top-down. So the advantage in that is that it assures more buy-in, it assures success and speed for the project. At the same time, there is a very enthusiastic participation by the team, so we can harvest the creativity, innovations, and enthusiasm of the team in the best possible way. If it is top-down, they are doing the whole thing very grudgingly. So it doesn't get executed, and we never get a best fit then.
I think that's a great point, Abhayji. It's about connecting and making sure that the team across is aligned to the purpose and objectives, and they work in as an orchestra, not as solo artists, so to say, and get the right symphony out of it. Great point. Over to you, Pratapji, your learnings and your recommendations to companies who are starting this journey.
From what we, all the experience we've had so far, one of the things that often gets missed, and that's why I'll pull that up, is, people go after technologies. At the end of the day, you need solutions that give you the augmented intelligence directly, right? So connecting these two is something called, we call decision engineering. If that is not done, technology is like atoms. The solution is like the molecule. There has to be a conversion, and that conversion is not very this thing. You require a multifaceted team. You need a lot of domain experience. You need the data scientists. So it's a multi software engineers and so on. So that is something that often gets missed. And when we did a poll, and we also worked with some of the early customers who had tried and failed, we found that this was an area that really kind of was the gap. And so that's why I'm bringing it up, because oftentimes people talk of a lot of technologies, a lot of components, but this is the portion that gets missed, which requires a lot of the domain experience. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah. I think we're very well said and very well articulated, I must say. I think I'll ask Satish to share his views on what kind of learnings would he like to share with participants. Over to you, Satish.
Yeah, so just to add the points, I think those points were really valid in terms of when you look at some of the key aspects when customers would like to move for digitalization. But one thing which I'd like to add is that when the process starts, when it initiates with a lot of inputs and a lot of assessment, the data is one of the very key aspects, because there's a lot of data flowing. And if you don't have a very good data security and data connectivity, that's where things starts getting into a very big mess. And so we have to ensure that we have the right robust infrastructure, the right connectivity, the right applications, and all sort of that. And one of the other key aspects which I'd like to add is always there's some kind of risk, because the clear risk barriers has to be identified, because it's not going to be an easy path. There are going to be sort of a lot of deterrents as we move to a particular process. But then, well, as said and done, if the risks are properly identified and mitigated, that becomes one of the key aspects of a success. And the last part, most of the important part I would add is that have a business continuity, because we've seen that with my experience, we've seen that once people look at a digitalized option, somewhere, if they're not able to do a right homework, if the business gets impacted, the continuity of business, something is very integral for the business to run. So ensuring that the business continuity does get disrupted, have the right infrastructure, right connectivity, and the right partner who really understand and assess this process. That's going to be the key aspect of the entire journey.
Great. I think great point. I think just to conclude, let me ask Dr. Mayur to pitch in his views around what are the current and future opportunities for improved public service with usage of these new age technologies. Dr. Parmar, if you could share that. You're on mute. You'll have to unmute.
There are infinite possibilities. However, just to name few, I will say that the agriculture and the health sector is the two main factors where we can start with. What if the farmers know that which products needs to be produced in this particular season? Because we have the data. Government is having many schemes. We have a soil health card data. We have so many data. So now we just need to apply these smart technologies to make the analytics well, and to guide, to help our farmers to take the good decisions. Same is in the case of healthcare. Same is in the case of disaster management. The list can go on and on. However, we are just at the beginning, and I'm sure new learning. We have seen the change in the last 3 years, and with our last 3 to 4 years of experience, we are now more than convinced that yes, it is possible. With the implementation of these technologies, we can definitely bring in social and economical development of our citizens. And with this our journey, I'm sure in the coming future, we will be serving the people in a better way. Thank you.
Great. I think that's the reason it's called an industrial revolution, so to say. So we call it a digital revolution, which is under play. I think just before I conclude, let me give a thought that with options in plenty of related to these digital interventions, in fact, we need to choose our battles and the allocation of budgets on areas which are the most rewarding. And we need to factor in whether it will be an outside in or an inside out approach, because depending upon the vertical or in which part of the business we are, or in whether we are talking about a government entity. But then it's an imperative, and we have to quick start and jumpstart on these initiatives. So I think it was a great session. Thank you all for spending time, and thanks everybody, and thank you all participants for giving us a patient hearing. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Atul.